to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting, crocheting, and a new craft, plastic canvas stitching, as well as an update about my Etsy shop. I will be having an Etsy shop update with some new project bags that I have been working on for several weeks, and I am coming near to the end of finishing them all up, and so I will give you a preview of all of the bags that I have been working on so that you can see what I've been up to with my sewing lately. So I hope that you all enjoy watching this episode. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts, and you can get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2022 Mal for you to join in the Make 9 Challenge, where you choose 9 projects that you would like to make this year. Post a grid of those projects to Instagram, and then anytime that you post a picture of your progress or a finished object that you're working on, include that hashtag and you will be entered to win a prize. Last time, I've been periodically drawing prizes, and I will continue to do that throughout the year. Last time I recorded an episode, I announced that one of the winners was a lady named Charmaine. And after I contacted her, or she contacted me and through email, she let me know that she would also like to donate a pattern for a prize. She designed this beautiful cowl called the Autumn Sunrise Cowl, and her name is Charmaine Celliers, I'm assuming is how you pronounce her last name. And it's just a gorgeous cowl, including that is made using mini skeins. 7 mini skeins. And so again, I thought it would be fun to include along with this pattern some yarn in order to make it. So the prize that I have to give away today along with that beautiful pattern is this set of 7 mini skeins of yarn. These are all my own hand-dyed yarn. So I haven't packaged them up because I wanted to be able to show them off. I'll show off the ones that were regular colors. I used to sell my hand-dyed yarn, and so this is just a plain black color. I called this one Night. This is a rusty orange called Comfort. I believe, if my memory recollection is correct, this one I called Patience. It's a really light peach with specks of browns and golds, a little bit of blue in there too as the color breaks. And then this one, I believe, was called Idyll. And it's a light gray base with teal and black throughout. And then I have 3 that are, new colors. I don't know. I don't sell my yarn anymore anyway. But anyway, this was a color that I had dyed when I made my little checks socks. So this was the deep red that I used in those socks. I really love the shade of that color. This color I used in my shawlography. So it's a deep golden color kind of with some specks of rust and green. And finally, there's this really cool one. I love this one. It's just got a cool mix of colors, browns, orange, bright pink, kind of a reddish color in there too. So I thought those looked really fun together, those colors. And of course, the winner can use this to make whatever you like. They are all on the same base, which is a sock weight base, fingering weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and each of these are 20 grams. So I think that's about 92 yards each or something like that. The winner of the cowl pattern and these skeins of yarn is on Instagram, Alex_J Cambellina. So congratulations to you. I would love it if you would just get in contact with me either through my email, or you can message me on Instagram and let me know your full name and mailing address, and also your email, so that I can let Charmaine know to send you a copy of her pattern. And then I will be glad to get this mini skein set off in the mail to you as well. So again, if you have not entered the Make 9 2022 MAL, it's not too late to start participating in that make along. I will have a description of the make along in the description box down below if you want to find out more about it, but certainly don't hesitate to continue to join in throughout the year. I would love to see the things that you would like to make this year. I am wearing my first finished object that I have to share with you all today, which I'm so excited about. I was able to finish my Advent turtleneck sweater that I made. I started this back at the end of November in preparation for Advent. I cast this on at the end of November and knit the turtleneck so that I would be ready on December 1st to start adding in the colors that I received from Emma of Potter and Bloom in our Advent swap that we did with each other. So I know I feel like a broken record as I repeat myself every time I talk about this sweater, and it's been such a long process, since November that I've been working on it. So I apologize for that. But one final last time, I did not really follow a pattern for this sweater. I did use the cast on numbers and the yoke increases from the Stoneham Poncho by Dianna Walla. I knit that a couple of years ago and modified that pattern to add sleeves onto the poncho so that it was made into a sweater like this. And I really loved the fit of that sweater, and so I wanted to make this sweater in the same way as that one. So in her pattern, she includes 2 sizes for her poncho. I used the numbers for the smaller size. I cast on that number for the turtleneck, and then I knit 7 inches of 1x1 ribbing. So I could wear it up like this if I was cold and really wanted it to be snuggly, but I probably won't wear it like this most often. I prefer it to be rolled down a bit. I used US 3.25 millimeters for that ribbing, but that was the only ribbing that I used those needles for. For the rest of the sweater, I used a US 5 3.75 millimeter needles. So I have 24 stripes of color through the yoke here, and I just alternated every other round with a color stripe. And I think that looks so pretty. I just love it so much. Then I just tried it on until I was ready to split for the sleeves. I ended up I did the same thing that I did with my other Stoneham sweater. I put 44 stitches for each sleeve on waste yarn, and then I picked up 15 stitches, or cast on 15 stitches for the underarm. And then when I picked up the 44 stitches for this sleeve to start knitting the sleeves, then I picked up 20 underarm stitches. So I just knit straight after I split for the sleeves until it was long enough. I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see it better. So I wanted this to be a little bit longer, I think, than my other sweater, so that it would sit at my, a little below, like right on my hips, I guess it sits. I think that's a comfortable length for me. And I knit about 4 inches of 1x1 ribbing. I did not go down in needle size for the ribbing because I didn't want it to cinch in at all. I just wanted it to lay really nice and flat, which I'm happy with that. And then for the sleeves, I, per usual, just knit them straight without doing any decreases. That's my typical thing for sleeves. That's just my favorite way to knit sleeves, is just to knit completely straight without decreasing at all. And I had not thought of this on my own, but a few people had suggested that I put some of the color stripes in the sleeves as well. And so I decided to do that. I started with the right sleeve, and I decided to add in all of the odd numbered days that Emma sent me. So this has days 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. So there's 12 stripes of color on each sleeve. And so this is all the even numbered days on the left sleeve. And I just think it looks so cool. I really thought that they would look totally mismatched, but they don't. I think that it's not super obvious that they don't actually match, but none of these colors are the same on each cuff. But I think it looks so cool. I'm so happy that I did that. So thank you to those of you that suggested I add some color striping on the sleeves. I think it looks really nice. And then I just did a rapid decrease. I think I wrote that down because I had originally done, for my rapid decrease, I had done a knit 2 together all the way around, but that ended up being too tight. So I decreased to 40 stitches. And also the first time I knit the cuffs, I had gone down a needle size, but I decided not to do that the second time I tried doing the cuffs. I just kept with the US 5 3.75 millimeter for those, and did a 1x1 ribbing for about 15 rounds. So I just absolutely love how those sleeves turned out. I think that's such a fun addition to the sweater. The main yarn that I used is just a bare fingering weight non-superwash fine merino wool, and all of the yarn that Emma sent to me is also fingering weight, but I held everything double throughout to make a DK weight. And last time I recorded, I was just starting this right sleeve. I hadn't gotten too far into it, and I hadn't done the left sleeve yet. And I was able to finish that in a couple of days after I recorded last, I think, the right sleeve. And then when I really didn't know if I was going to do the colors at the end or not until I was at that point, and I was like, yeah, maybe I will do it, because I just wasn't sure how I would be able to fit in those stripes so that the sleeve would be the right length. But I figured that I could do it if I don't know, I just could I thought it would work out, and it did. So I was happy with that. And then once I got the first sleeve done, then I was like super motivated to get the second sleeve done and work up those color stripes to see how they would look. Like I said, I just thought that they would look really mismatched, but after I got done, I was like, you can hardly tell that they don't match unless you just look really closely. So I just think that's really neat. I love it. I did not do any type of management of my stripes. For the back, I switched the colors. I'm not going to turn all the way around, but it's just like these. I didn't do any kind of a jogless technique for the stripes on the back of the sweater or on the sleeves. So here you can see the beginning of the round, and there is a bit of a jog, but I'm not too bothered by that. I just don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's that noticeable, and it's on the inside of my sleeve here, and then it's on the back of my neck, and I wear my hair down a lot, so it's going to be covered up most of the time, so I wasn't too bothered by that. And I have tried several jogless stripe techniques, and none of them are very effective for me. I did see that Anna of Anna Knitter put out a tutorial for a jogless stripe technique that I haven't watched yet, so I'm going to check that out and see if it gives me any new tips that I could try, because I would like to be able to knit jogless stripes, but I just haven't found a technique that works for me. Or, I mean, it works kind of, but it's just not super effective, and it's more hassle than it's worth, in my opinion. So anyway, I was not too bothered by the stripes jogging on this sweater at all. I had a ton of ends to weave in, which took quite a long time to weave in all of the ends, but it worked out, and I'm just really, really happy with it. I think it's so fun. There's also 2 yarns that Emma sent me that have stellina in them, and there is one on each cuff, which I think is fun. There's one little stripe with a little sparkle on each sleeve, and I just think they're so fun. I'm so happy with this. I just love the color gradient that she sent me. I think it's so beautiful. So thanks again, Emma, for sending me these beautiful yarns, and I'm so glad I was able to put them into this sweater, and I'm so pleased that I was able to finally finish this sweater. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would, but I'm so glad it is done now. I was also able to finish up the socks that I had been mending. I showed these off last couple of episodes. So this is a sock These are socks that I knit a few years ago. I knit them back in 2020, in August of 2020. The pattern is called Slipped Up Socks by All Knit Up Designs. And I knit these using Knit Picks Felici in the Endless Summer colorway. I had knit these, and then for the heels and toes I had used a contrasting color that I had received in a swap, and I'm assuming, but I'm not 100% sure of the content of that yarn, but I'm assuming that it didn't have nylon in it, maybe, because they just wore out super quickly and became very, very thin in both the heels and the toes. So I needed to replace them. These were knit cuff down, and it had a slip stitch heel flap, and I was concerned about how to replace a heel flap and heel turn that had been knit from the top down. I just didn't think that that was going to be possible. I had originally thought that I would insert an afterthought heel, just because I thought that was going to be the only way to replace the heel. But I had a few people, again, suggest in the comments that I could maybe just knit a normal heel flap and heel turn and Kitchener the stitches together. And that's what I did, and it worked out really well. So I just picked up there are 64 stitch count sock. I picked up the 32 stitches before the heel flap and just knit a regular heel flap and heel turn. And then I have a total of 52 stitches after I pick up my gusset stitches. And so I picked up all 52 stitches along with on the side of the heel flaps that I had just knitted per normal. Okay, so when I knit a heel flap and heel turn, I have 18 stitches on my needles. I pick up 17 stitches on each side of the gusset, and so that's a total of 52 stitches. So that's what I had on the heel that I had just knitted, and then I picked up 52 stitches along this light pink stripe, and I Kitchenered those stitches together. The color that I used for the heels and toes is Yarn Bee Color Idyll, and L is for lemon. That is a discontinued yarn, unfortunately, because I really loved working with it. It was a great yarn. I think it's going to be super sturdy. The content of it, do I have that written down? I don't think I do. No, I don't. But it has wool, nylon, and some acrylic in there, so I think it's going to be a pretty sturdy yarn. And for the toe, that was simple. I just picked up the 64 stitches and knitted a regular rounded toe, as I always do, and Kitchenered the end of the toe. So that was a super easy fix, but I'm so pleased that the heel worked out to be replaced. And I just love the yellow color. I think they really have gotten kind of a facelift, and they're so fun and bright now, and I'm so thrilled that I was able to save them from getting discarded. I'm so happy that I was able to do that. I should have recorded some sort of a tutorial showing how I did it, but I was just doing it for the first time, and I was very unsure of how it was going to work out. So if I ever do that again in the future, maybe I will try to record it, but I didn't this time. Okay, I also have a few more dishcloths that I was able to finish since I recorded last. I have mentioned this pattern a few times now. It is the Classic Easy Knit Dishcloth by Carolyn Stanton. I discovered this back in January, this pattern, because I was just searching for a pattern that would be a little bit more neat. The pattern that I used to use left a pretty loose, on the second half of the dishcloth, it left really large gaping kind of holes on one side, on the decreased side of the dishcloth. And this pattern, the way that it is written, just is a lot neater. It knits up more neatly, and I'm so pleased with it. So I just have 4 more dishcloths done. I have 2 in this blue color. This is Knit Picks Dishie in the blue color. It's a 100% cotton worsted weight. And I have 2 in navy. So those are super easy and fun to, well, just nice to have as a project to work on the go. I have So those are all of my finished objects, and I will go on to my works in progress. I'm still holding my dishcloth works in progress in this me made bag that's very winter themed. It technically still is winter. In fact, it's snowing right now here. We have gotten so little snow this winter, which has been quite a disappointment to me because I love the snow, but it's snowing now. We're supposed to get a few inches, I guess, of snow tomorrow. So I'm excited for that, but even at this time of the year, it's kind of like, well, it could be spring now. I've almost like given up on winter because we just didn't get much snowfall this winter. Anyway, in here I am working on another dishcloth, same pattern. And this is going to be the last dishcloth that I will make, that I have enough yarn to make in a solid color. So after I finish this dishcloth, I'm only going to have scraps left, which I'm super excited about because I love using up my scraps, and I'm just going to put together colors to make scrappy dishcloths with what I have left over. But anyway, this is exactly halfway done. I've just done one row of the decrease stitches. And this again is Knit Picks Dishie in this silver colorway. I knit these on US 6 4mm needles. These are Chaogu bamboo straight needles, and I really like them, except look how bent they are. I've really bent. I obviously hold my needles a little too tightly, I guess. I don't know, but it's quite bent. But they still work. I hope they don't break ever, but oh dear, I've knit my hair into this one. Any longtime viewers remember that book that I was reading to my children? Esperanza something? Anyway, in that book, the grandmother, I think, is teaching the granddaughter how to crochet, and she got a hair in her crochet project, and she thought that that was great, that her hair was getting crocheted into her project. I always try to get my hair out of it, but it happens sometimes. Anyway, that's my first work in progress. My next work in progress is being held in this Tanny Casey project bag. And in here is my Elly cardigan, which is another very long-term project. I started this one way back in August of 2021. And I started off knitting let me check what size I started off with, because I wanted to give you a little bit more detail about this one. I didn't touch on some things that I wanted to last time I recorded. I started off making the extra large size because my gauge is tighter than the original. My gauge is 27 stitches to 4 inches, although that was when I gauge swatched. I haven't checked my gauge recently. But the original calls for 23 stitches to 4 inches. And so that's why I originally started with the extra large size, but it turned out, it may have fit me as it's supposed to, but I wanted my neck to fit more tightly around, I wanted it to be a tighter fit around my neck. It was a bit wide in the neckline, and I didn't like that. So I ripped it back and recast it on in October, and I started knitting the smallest size. I put it on hold for quite a while as I was doing Christmas gift knitting and things like that, and then I also got messed up on my stitch count and was a bit confused. So I just put it on hold until my friend Michelle sat down with me and helped me take another look at the pattern and get a better grasp on how I was doing. And I've been working on it consistently since I picked it back up in January, I believe. So since I'm knitting the smaller size, I am not the smaller size. My measurements are not the smaller size. But like I said, I just wanted that tighter neckline. And so I cast on the stitches for the smallest size, but then just kept doing the raglan increases and kept trying it on until it fit me in the right way so that I would be ready to split for the sleeves. So when I got to that point, my stitch count was very, very similar to the extra large size that I had originally been knitting. So I was happy with that. So for example, I think it's okay to give away stitch counts. Don't you think? I think it's okay. This is a paid for pattern. But just as an example, on the sleeves for the original pattern, it says that the 4th size is supposed to have 89 stitches and I had 88 stitches. I'm not sure why I'm only off by 1 stitch. That doesn't make sense to me, but I didn't care. It was close enough. And then I was exactly right for the front pieces for the cardigan. Stitch count was perfect. And then for the back, I was only off by 12 stitches. So I didn't think that that was too bad. I had 12 less stitches than what I was supposed to for the back. So it was pretty similar to the stitch count I was supposed to have for that 4th size, the extra large size. And I just split for the sleeves like she called for that 4th size as far as the stitch counts. She did call for a provisional crochet cast on for the underarm stitches, but I did not do that. I didn't see the point of that. I've never done that for an underarm before, and I don't know. I've done a provisional crochet cast on before, and I think it's a bit fiddly. I just don't prefer using that method, so I just cast on the number of stitches that she calls for using the back loop method like I normally do. And then I have just been following the pattern pretty much. She does give options for some waist shaping. I did do just 3 rounds of decreasing on the sides here. Now the sun's come out a bit. There you can see, I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that because I think it looks a little funny. I might want to tighten up those stitches. I don't think it was really necessary. I just started adding in some decreases, but again, I only did 3 rows of that. So I only ended up, you just decrease 4 stitches for those rounds. So I've decreased by 12 stitches, I guess, but I've just been knitting straight since then. And it's fitting really nicely. I'm super happy with how it's coming along. I am adding beads to this pattern, which is not in the original pattern, but I love it so much. I'm using US 3.25 millimeter needles for my knit stitches. And then on the wrong side, I'm using a US 2.5 3 millimeter because my purl stitches are looser than my knit stitches. And my gauge is turning out really nicely. I'm happy with it. I have a cute little stitch marker from Tracy of Grizzly Knits here on the back that marks where I was last time I recorded. So as I've mentioned in previous episodes, I put 2 rows into this project every morning, and I have continued to do that. And so I make the same amount of progress every time I record, but slow and sure, I am getting there. I am very, very close to being completely done with the lace patterning on the body. As you can see, the lace is tapering off here. It comes to a V shape, and I'm just down to 1. I've been using stitch markers to mark my pattern repeats, and I only have 1 lace repeat left right now, and it's going to be decreasing until it just is into plain stockinette for the rest of the body. I'm going to be cropping this a lot from what the original pattern shows. It's originally designed to be quite a long sweater, really. Not super long, but past the hips. And I'm going to be cropping it to be ending more at my natural waist, I think. I really want to have this sweater to wear over dresses, and so it will work best if it's a bit cropped. All of the ribbing on this pattern is twisted ribbing, and I'm knitting the button bands as I go. I'm nervous about the button bands because they're really wavy. See that? They don't lay very flat. I'm really, really hoping that when I block it, they will lay nicely. But I'm just adding them in per the pattern. And of course, you're not changing to a smaller needle. I'm adding buttonholes on this side here. That's what these stitch markers are marking. I believe I'm doing that about every 16 rows. So I'm hoping that that will lay a little bit more flat once I block it. Worst case scenario, I've already thought about this. If it doesn't lay flat, I wonder if I could just knit on a better, like pick up stitches and knit a regular button band, and then maybe sew this one in so that you wouldn't see the original one, or maybe even steek it, like sew a seam and cut off that extra. I don't know. I've already thought about that though. If it doesn't work out, what am I going to do? So anyway, we'll see how it works out. I'm so happy with this though. So after I get done with the lace on the front, this will be a very mindless project for the rest of the body. So that'll be nice. And then the sleeves are going to be full lace. The lace work is done completely on the sleeves, and I'm really excited to get to the sleeves. I think it'll be fun to work on the sleeves and see how they come along. They're going to be so pretty, I think, with lace and beads throughout. Again, I'm using the same yarn for this project as I did for this project. The main color in here is just a bare fingering weight fine merino wool, non-superwash, and I'm holding this one single instead of double. It's a fingering weight sweater. So that is really coming along well, and yeah, I'm so happy that I've stayed consistent with this project. My next work in progress is this Afghan that I am crocheting as a gift for my stepmom's friend. And isn't it beautiful? I love it so much. Right now it's kind of at a cool stopping point because it is a perfect square right now. It won't be in the end, but this pattern comes from an old publication by Leisure Arts. It's called A Year of Afghans, 1997, and this pattern is called Old Time Charm. It is made using, obviously, you crochet these squares and then you stitch them together using a whip stitch. I love how it's coming out so much. So the Afghan calls for you to have 70 squares total. Each row has 7 squares in it, and then there's supposed to be 10 rows of those 7 squares, so a total of 70 squares. Right now I have 7 rows done, so like I said, it's a perfect square. The yarn that I'm using is all Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn, 100% acrylic worsted weight. The 3 colors I'm using are light sage, ivory, and sage advice. That is the only modification that I have made to this pattern, is that it doesn't call for you to use 3 different yarns. It originally would have you use this green as your main color in this section as well. But Hobby Lobby didn't have enough of that light sage color when I picked up this yarn, and so I got the sage advice. But I'm so happy that it worked out that way because I love the contrast that adds and how those colors look together. It's such a beautiful pattern. I'm going to stand up again so you can see this better. Oh, it's looking cool. I love it. Oh, I think it's going to be great. Now, I was looking at it last night as I just finished up the 7th row last night. And I was trying to picture what it would look like with 3 more rows added to the bottom. And I'm kind of thinking that it's going to be, that would make it a little too long. I just think that the dimensions of it with 10 rows might look a little too oblong. I think I might just do 9 rows, and I think it will be a nice size with only 9 rows. You know, it'll just look more proportionate, I guess, if that makes sense. So I'm going to make 9 rows and lay it out and see if I think that looks big enough. I just think that the 10th row might make it look a little too long. So, and then I'll need to add the border, of course, but it's getting close to being finished. I have resisted the temptation of casting on any new projects, so I have really tried to stay focused on the ones that I have in progress. Like I said, I just add 2 rows to my Elly cardigan every morning, and then otherwise this is the project that I've been focusing on after I get done with that. So there is one other project that I also work on every morning, and I'll show that to you next. But yeah, I haven't started anything else new, trying to really focus on getting this finished up soon. I'm using an H hook, which is a 5mm for this project, which is what the pattern called for. So like I said, I'm not making any modifications that I might with adding that 10th row in. I am so happy with how this is coming out. I just have truly, truly enjoyed working on it. It's so relaxing and enjoyable to work on. But of course, after making, well, let's see, either 63 or 70 squares, I'll be happy to be done with it once it is done, but it really has been such a joy to work on. For the border, I'm not sure, I might make a modification to the border once I get started on that. I'll see what the pattern calls for. I think it's a pretty simple, let me grab the book actually. I kind of forget what the original pattern calls for the border, but I'm thinking it was a pretty simple one. Here's the book that it comes from. And this is available on Amazon, which I will link to. Yeah, the border is very simple. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's just a very simple border, and I might add a more detailed border, more elaborate border. I'm not sure. Something that's a little bit more special than just that plain border, but we'll see. If you recall, I don't remember which episode it was, several, well, like, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 4 episodes ago or something like that, I made a pot holder to try out this pattern. I have no idea what episode that was. Maybe I'll put it right here, what episode it was, in case you want to check that out. But I made a pot holder as a sample before I started making this pattern to see if how it would work out. And I added a border to that pot holder that I really liked. So I might use that same pattern for the border for the Afghan as well, because I really liked how it looked with this pattern. So anyway, this is coming along really well, and hopefully next time I record it will be finished. Okay, my next work in progress that I want to update you all on is my Excavation blanket. I last showed this off at the beginning of January. This is a free pattern by Dianna Pahota. And look at those bright colors I got to add in. So here is a progress keeper marking where I was at the beginning of this year, and I have added in these colors that I have, well, the way that I use my idea for this blanket is that every time I finish a project using fingering weight yarn, if I have any leftovers from that project, I add them in to this Afghan. So these beautiful bright colors here are from the 24 days socks and my scrappy socks that I knit up using the Advent swap that I sent to Emma. And now I'm adding in these beautiful colors that I got from Emma that I put into this sweater. So I'm not quite through, I think I added day 8 today to this. So this is actually the very first thing that I work on every morning. I add 1 color stripe to this Afghan every morning, and then I work on my Elly cardigan. So that's my morning routine. Anyway, so I've added quite a few inches to this Afghan, and I'm so happy with how it's coming out. I think it's so cool. I'll stand up so you can see this one better too, but I just want to touch on how I'm making this. The original pattern calls for you to start off at one corner and you increase every row, and you add, that's not the right corner. Where is the right corner? Maybe that is. No, you start down here. this is the corner where I started off, and you leave a tail of yarn. Hold it up a little better. You leave a tail of yarn and you just do an increase stitch for each row, and then you knit the right side and the wrong side, and then you cut a tail again when you're done with that color stripe. So every stripe is 2 rows of knitting, all in garter stitch. And the original pattern calls for you to do that until you get to the size that you want, and then for you to start working the wrong side as though it's the right side. So your right side will become, so half of your blanket will be showing the right side and half of your blanket will be showing the wrong side. I didn't want that. I wanted all of the right side to show the right side, because of course on the wrong side you have these, the stripes just are more muddied, I guess. And on the right side, the stripes are more clean. And I wanted my blanket to show all of the right side on the right side. I hope that makes sense. So I've modified the pattern. Instead of doing all knit stitches on the second half of the blanket, I am doing all purl stitches and just decreasing every row. So that is a modification that I've made to the pattern. Now, as I mentioned in my Elly cardigan, my purl stitches are looser than my knit stitches. So when I started working, well, I originally started this blanket using US 2.75 millimeter needles. And when I started the purl stitches, I actually went down to a 00, which is a 1.75 millimeter needle. But I found out that my stitches were becoming too tight using that small of a needle. So I gradually worked my way up. And now I have just started recently using a US 2.75 for the purl stitches as well. So maybe my purl stitches are tightening up, which would be amazing if they are. I would absolutely love it if I could get my purl stitches to match my knit stitch gauge. It seems like it is for this project, but then again, on my Elly cardigan, I'm using a different needle, and that gauge I'm really happy with too, so I'm not quite sure, but anyway. I'll go ahead and stand up so you can see how this looks in its entirety. All right, this one's pretty tricky to show off, but this is as good as I can get. So that's the first half, basically. And then, right on this side, you can see where I start decreasing. Maybe you can tell. And it's really hard to show, and I'm always afraid it's going to fall off at the needle, that the needle stoppers are not going to hold, but can kind of get an idea here of how much further I have. My rows are still very long, but of course every row is decreasing, so it's coming along. I wasn't too sure about adding all of those bright colors that I had sent to Emma, you know, into this blanket, because I knew that it was really going to stand out, but I just like the method that I'm using for this blanket, where I'm just adding in whatever I knit with. I think that's so fun to do, and it really is a memory blanket then, where I can look back and remember all of the projects that I've worked on over the years. I started this blanket back in 2017, so it's definitely a long-term project, but I absolutely love it. So I'm going to continue adding in all of the stripes from this sweater to this blanket, and then I'm planning on, with the leftovers that I have of the Advent swap that Emma sent to me, making a pair of scrappy socks with the leftovers after I add a stripe to the Excavation blanket. Okay, I mentioned that I have a new craft that I started. I'm just holding it in this plastic bag that I don't know where I got it from. And I picked up a kit from Mary Maxim for this cute little tissue box cover, which is a bird feeder. I first heard about Mary Maxim through Kay of Crazy Sock Lady. She has, I think it's a tissue box cover that's Halloween, like a haunted house type thing. that she puts out. And anyway, I'd never heard of Mary Maxim until she had mentioned that website. And anyway, I thought it would be so fun to work up this kit. And I ordered this kit, I'm guessing back in December. And I had just put it in my closet and hadn't pulled it out. And then Mary Maxim sent me a catalog in the mail, just showing off all the different things that they sell. And I was looking through it one night and I saw this in the magazine, and my kids were around me and we were looking at the different things in that magazine. And I said, I actually had this kit. I got it. I'd never shown them when it arrived. And so they said, well, can we see it? And I said, sure. So I went and got it out and started working on it. And I started cutting out the pieces. And I remember, I was going to try to find it, but it'll be too hard to find. When I was maybe in first grade, I was in a brownies group, which is kind of like the beginning or the young stages of Girl Scouts, I believe. I was just in brownies for a year or two when I was younger. And we made, as a craft around Christmas time, we made a picture frame that we made into an ornament. And I still have that, but of course it's up in my Christmas ornaments box. And it has my, I think, first grade school picture framed in this plastic canvas stitching. And so anyway, knowing that I had done that when I was younger, I thought maybe the kids would like to try doing this project. So I asked them if they wanted to try it, and all of my kids have tried it. My youngest is not a fan, but my other four are all working on a piece. So the one that has made the most progress is my oldest. He's 13, and this is the piece that he's been working on. Now, we have made lots of mistakes as we've gone along. We've ripped out a lot of stitches. I usually help them start a new strand of yarn, and I help them kind of, if they have any problems, I'm often helping them. So that's been a learning process for them to learn, how to do the stitches and where to put their needle. They're oftentimes asking me, am I in the right spot? And I have to help them, but that's okay. I cannot tell you how much joy it brings me when there's been a couple of nights when I'm knitting on a project and the four kids that are working on this project are all sitting there and stitching along with me. Oh my word. It makes me so happy to just all be sitting around and stitching away on our projects. So I'm trying to be as patient as I can be as they continually need my help, because it just brings me so much joy to see them being crafty. So anyway, here is one piece. My daughter is making great progress as well. She's 11, and here is the piece she's been working on. And then my two other sons are 12 and 9. And I don't know which one is which, but they will know whose is whose. But they're both working on these little pieces, which go here at the bottom of the bird feeder. So I'm so excited that we're working on this together, and I cut out the pieces, the plastic, because it just comes with a big sheet like this, and you have to cut it out per the pattern. But it comes with everything you need. All of the yarn is cut into manageable strips, and you just pull a new strand of yarn whenever you run low, and it works out really well. So we've been having a lot of fun working on that. It's been a great project to work on whenever they want to. I don't, no pressure. They can just work on it whenever they want. It's kind of winter themed, as you saw, so it doesn't need to get done anytime soon, but I'm so excited that they're enjoying it. So that's great. All right, I think that is all I have for my works in progress. I do have one new thing that I wanted to share with you. I got a surprise gift in the mail from Erica of the Rose Opal Knits podcast, and I had seen these adorable stitch markers that she had cross-stitched, and she sent me one along with some other goodies, but this I just had to share with you all because it's so precious. When she showed these off on their podcast, I thought they were adorable, but I had no idea how minuscule these stitches are. I do not understand how in the world you did this, Erica. They're so tiny, the stitches. I won't be able to show them in great detail, but 3 little yarn balls and straight knitting needles. Oh my goodness, it's just so adorable. I adore this so much, Erica. So thank you so much for sending this to me. I'm so touched that you thought to send one of these to me. I feel so blessed. So thank you so much for sending this to me. I adore it. Okay, lastly, I have my multiple project bags that I've been working on. January 1st, I went to my fabric storage area and went through all of my fabrics that I have in my stash. And I had gotten quite a few vintage fabrics from my neighbor when he had an estate sale of his over 100-year-old grandmother's things. So I got a lot of her vintage fabric. And then I also had, well, I'll go through all of the fabrics, or I'll go through all of the project bags that I will have in my shop update, but there's just quite a few that are using some vintage fabric. And I'm so excited about that. So I have, I think there's like 16 different fabric combinations for this shop update. So there's going to be quite a few different options. So bear with me as I go through them if you are interested in seeing what I will have. But I do not know exactly when the shop update will be. I still have 10 more bags that I need to finish before I am ready to put all of the bags in my shop update. I'm not sure how long that will take me, but I'm hoping it will be within the next week. And I am going to post on Instagram and give you all a 48-hour notice if you are interested in checking that shop update out. And also, I have mentioned before, but if you are interested in receiving an email whenever I do a shop update, you can just send me an email and request that you are added to the list of my email updates. And I'll be glad to send you an email 48 hours in advance of the shop update to let you know when the shop will be updated. But I'll put that on Instagram as well if you would just like rather go that route. So I'm going to go through all of the bags and let you know there's various amounts of each fabric. The first few bags that I'll show off are made using all vintage fabric, which I just think is so special. I have this beautiful floral fabric. I have, again, I've only done my small size and my medium size for these bags. The smaller size is a great sock size. I don't have the dimensions written down right here, but they will be listed on the Etsy listing. But it comfortably holds about 2 skeins of yarn, I'd say. They're a cute little size. So this one has this really gorgeous velvety mauve colored bottom fabric here. And I love this floral fabric up here at the top. And even the inside is this vintage mauve colored fabric. All of my bags have an interior pocket, and they also have this clasp sewn on the inside, and I include 6 closed ring stitch markers with each bag as well. And they're all drawstring, and they all have a boxed bottom. They are all lined. I think that's all I have to say. I will have 3 of the small size and 2 of the medium. I'll try to go through these quickly because I have a lot. The next one is all vintage as well. No, that's not true. These, okay, I know I have a few more that are all vintage, but they're going to be at a reduced rate, and I'll explain that later. Okay, this is the next fabric. So the 2 exterior fabrics on these are both vintage fabrics, but the interior is not. I love this one too so much. I'm gonna have a hard time letting all of these go because I really love them. So I just think that the rich colors in this floral fabric are so great. And then the bottom on this is this really soft wine colored corduroy. The interior for this one is light kind of a grayish brown with polka dots. This one again has the bronze antique. Is that what it's called? Antique bronze. And but for some of the bags, they will have silver clasps, just depending on whether I think this antique bronze color or the silver looks best with the color combinations in the bag. But again, that will be listed on each listing. Okay, for these, I have 5 of the small ones and 8 of the medium size. For this one, I only have 2 of this smaller size. This is a vintage fabric, and also the interior fabric is vintage. And for these 2, I put in the contrasting pocket, which these are the only ones that have a contrasting pocket. But I thought that was fun to add that in. There we can see the silver clasp with the silver stitch markers. And this one just has a canvas for the base and the drawstring casing, and I use this for a lot of other ones, so you'll see a lot of this canvas fabric throughout. This next one is the only one that I have, just this one medium size. This is not a vintage fabric. I actually used this to make a dress. If you're a longtime viewer, you may remember that I made a dress in this fabric several years ago. But the brown corduroy at the bottom and the interior fabric is both vintage. The interior fabric is really fun. It's this, it has a texture to it with these raised little polka dots. So that's really fun. The next one is the only one of its kind as well, and it is in the medium size. This is more of an upholstery fabric. It's vintage, and then you can see that same mauve colored velvet that I had on the first bag I showed you. The interior fabric is not vintage. It's a bit of a thicker fabric that I don't normally use for lining, but I just thought it worked well for this bag, and I used the same color for the drawstring. This next one, I have both sizes in this fabric. This is another one of my favorites. Love it so much. This is vintage, but the interior and the canvas is not. The interior is this it's a light gray with leafy designs on it. For this one, I only have one of this medium size, except that I have one more this size that's going to be at a reduced rate. So you'll see that in a minute or a few minutes. For the small ones, I have 3 small ones. Again, another favorite. I know it's terrible. I love them. Okay, so this one, oh my goodness, this is probably my favorite of all. I love this fabric so much. It's a really high quality fabric too. I mean, I don't have any information about it. It's vintage, but I can just tell it's a super nice quality fabric. And I think it is so stunning. I love it so much. And I really like it with this, paired with this striped canvasy type material. It's like a duck cloth. I love it. The interior is this fun yellow with these, I don't know what you call that design on there, but I think it's so pretty. I will have quite a few of these, 11 of these, all in the medium size. Unless I keep one. It might be only 10. Okay, my next one I have in both sizes, but I only have one of the smaller size, 4 of the medium size. This is another vintage fabric, but the other fabrics are not vintage. The interior is this kind of a khaki colored interior with these X's or little crosses on them. And the bottom is, I use this in my winter update. I use this material. It's kind of a thicker upholstery material. But I think that that fabric is really beautiful as well. Next, we have these. So pretty. For this one, I have only this one small one and 3 of the medium size. And the interior for this one is just a white, and it has, you can barely see it, but it has white on white floral print Next, we have this combo. Again, this is a vintage fabric, the outside here, but the rest is not. For this one, again, I only have, I have 2 of the smaller size and 3 of the medium size. The interior for this, you've seen already, the gray polka dot. Okay, the next bag is not vintage at all. I did a shop update with this fabric a long time ago, but I paired it with a darker base fabric. But I had just a little bit of this fabric left over, enough to make a few bags. I have 2 of the smaller ones and only this one medium size. And I used that white floral fabric for the interior for these as well. And then my last bag that I have that's not on a reduced rate is this gorgeous fabric. Again, these are not vintage at all. They're all new fabrics, but I just love this fabric with these sweet little birds throughout. They're not often repeated, so like on the back piece here, there's no birds at all, but every once in a while you get a little bird. So I tried to, I'm pretty sure each of these bags has at least one bird on the front panel. And I have 7 of these, all in the medium size. The interior for this one is this tan, there's a little thread in there. This tan, I don't know what you'd call this. A tan colored fabric that coordinates. Okay, so I do, the downfall to working with vintage fabric is that sometimes it's not in the perfect shape, and that's why I have a few bags that are going to be 20% off of the regular price. The first one is this bag, which you saw already, but this one, after I had already gotten it all sewn up, I noticed that there was this, I don't know if you'll be able to see it well, but there's this section right here that is discolored, like the fabric had maybe been in the sun or something and got faded in that little section. So it's not terrible. It's on the back side for this one, so that's nice, but I just didn't feel comfortable selling this at a full price, so it will be 20% off. It is a medium size. The next one, I have 3 of this small size, and all 3 of them I'm gonna put at a 20% off discount as well, because I had a really hard time sewing this fabric. This again, this bag is actually 100% vintage fabric. So this is an upholstery fabric, and it's a little bit thicker than what I'm used to working with. In fact, this bag does not have any lining in it because it was already substantial with this upholstery fabric, and I didn't think that it needed a lining to give it more substance. The bottom is a purple, deep purple corduroy. And then the interior, you already saw that polka dot. It's kind of that raised polka dot that I showed you in the other bag. But really, there's nothing wrong with these bags as far as, you know, use. They'll be great. It's just that I had a very, very hard time getting my top stitching right here on this. I always do a row of top stitching along the, that's like the last thing that I do when I'm sewing the bag is I go around with the top stitching. And if you see on the inside, well, maybe you can't see because of the lighting. Okay, right here, you can see that my stitching is really kind of wonky. And it's just something maybe that's, I don't know if everybody will be bothered by it, but I'm bothered by it, and I'm not happy with how that worked out. And I tried several different ways. I tried using my walking foot to try to get more even stitches. I just couldn't get it to stitch very well, and I think it's because of this thicker upholstery fabric that I had trouble. So it's not terrible, but it's not great either. So that's why I'm putting these 3 smaller bags at a reduced rate, because that top stitching is not perfect. It's not great. I mean, none of my bags are perfect, but I just wasn't happy with how that turned out. Okay, the last 2 are also 100% vintage, and they are pretty special, but they both have some problems. And again, it's due to the vintage fabric, I guess. This first one is, I didn't notice that it had a problem until I was all done. Well, with both of them, because I might not have made these bags if I had noticed this ahead of time, but anyway. This is another one that's kind of more of an upholstery fabric, but I didn't have trouble with my stitching on this one so much. It's just that after I got done with this one, I noticed that there's this little spot right here where there's some threads that are kind of frayed just in this one little spot. But again, I probably could have just ripped it all out and started over, but it's just that one little spot, and I think it's just because, maybe it's because it's vintage. I don't know why. I just wasn't, you know, again, I wasn't happy with this one, so it will be reduced. But this one has a very special lining. It is a linen lining. It's a really high quality material, and it's such a nice linen interior for this one. And I have 2 of these. This is the medium size, and the second one is also going to be reduced because, whoops, little thread again. Even though this fabric was washed, it still has a stain. Right in here you can see that there's a bit of a brown stain, and unfortunately it's on the front too, which I didn't notice until I was all done. So yeah, that's why I am putting these both at a reduced rate, but it's the same as the other one. Again, medium size. So those are all of the bags. There's quite a few. Again, I will just update on Etsy whenever I have a better idea of when those will be in the shop. So that is all that I have to share with you today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that so much. I hope that you all are doing really well. Take care. Bye-bye.